Saturn is going to give birth in this arc. I know that's an alarming statement, and we're going to come back to that. But first, I got to give you some preamble. Okay, so a lot of people have been saying that Egghead is a run back of Shabani Archipelago. Rightfully so. We've got a lot of the same players here. We have Jiribani, we have Sentomaru, we have Kizaru, and Kuma. It has appeared in this arc. Okay, very fair, very cool. However, I also think this is also a mashup between Shabani Archipelago and Thriller Bark, because just like Shabani Archipelago, a lot of the same elements in Thriller Bark are in the Egghead arc. First of all, Marshall D. Teach, Blackbeard, is a big deal in the Egghead arc, right? We see him in a bunch of cutaways. And if you recall, during Moria and Kuma's meeting, Blackbeard was the topic of conversation with his bounty being 0, right? Okay, so we have him sort of like at the start of his journey here, and now in Egghead, we have him in finality. He's potentially coming to the island. He's been mentioned and shown several times throughout the Egghead arc so far. It makes sense. And now he's at the top of his game with future aspirations to make Pirate Island a legit nation. So again, he's at the cusp of another step in his grand master plan, because when he was first talked about in Thriller Bark, he had just been inducted into the 7 warlords. So makes a lot of sense. Now, Moria is mentioned in this arc as a captor of Blackbeard. Of course, you know, Thriller Bark was Moria's arc. Now we also have Perona, also seen on Pirate Island, trying to save Moria. Of course, she was a major player in Thriller Bark. And then we have Shiryu. Shiryu is the holder of the Clear Fruit. Absalom was the original holder of the Clear Fruit. Also a grand member of the Mysterious Four, present in Thriller Bark. Now, another very interesting thing is that Kuma was a player in both Shabani Archipelago and Thriller Bark. As an honorable mention to Shabani Archipelago, we are also reintroduced to the concept of pacifistas, because in Shabani Archipelago, pacifistas were stated as an army of robots who were clones of Kuma. Now in Egghead, we have a new breed of pacifista that are also clones of Kuma, but are tougher in the Mark III variants. Also, in Thriller Bark, we are introduced to a new race of creature. Even though they're devilfruit constructs, still they're a result that kind of expands into a whole, I guess, populace of beings that we haven't seen yet in the story. Of course, I'm talking about the zombies, right? So the zombies worked like this. You take a shadow from a person using the powers of the shadow fruit, and you place it in the corpse. That corpse then moves and acts in the same way to the person. They adopt their fighting style, their mannerisms, and then their spirit is broken over time, and then they become full-on slaves to Moria, right? The Seraphim and Egghead are much in the way the same thing. They are clones of the 7 warlords. They, for the most part, as far as we've seen, have the same powers. From Esnake, they have the same mannerisms. So they are a weird allegory to the zombies on Thriller Bark, because they act the same way, they do the same things. So that's an allegory to that. Another very interesting thing, and we're warping around to that birthing part that I mentioned at the start. In Thriller Bark, there was a general zombie. That general zombie's name was Tararan. Tararan was a weird spider zombie. He was a spider monkey, playing on the name of the actual animal, the spider monkey, but he was just a big zombie spider with a monkey's head and hands, right? So he had little spider mouse minions, and he fought Frankie and Robin and was defeated by Brooke. So in 1094, we see J. Garcia Saturn touchdown, and he has a Ushi Oni looking fruit, right? Which makes him, like Taran, a giant chimera spider, because he is both a spider and a bull, like how Taran was a spider and a monkey. So in his first showing, who is he confronting? He is confronting Frankie, for one, which is a point, as Taran confronted Frankie, and he gets stabbed by Bonnie with a sword. Tyran was defeated by Brooke, who is a swordsman. So, with that being said, I think one of the powers that Saturn is going to have is that he can either produce via weird, creepy eggs, or perhaps summon via his summoning circle spider minions that will do his bidding and attack all the enemies on the island. That's what I think. I think that's an extension of his ability. Maybe there'll be weird cow spiders like him, or there'll be some sort of other like shadow spider looking thing. But I think that's going to be one of the aspects of his ability, that he can produce smaller minions that then go attack and do his bidding. Perhaps he'll tap his staff on the ground, summoning circles will appear around him, and then from those summoning circles, you'll have these tiny, weird spider things. That kind of fits with the whole ball symbolism, because if you didn't know, I've been saying for a minute that I do think that along with being a reference to the Ushioni, Saturn's fruit is also a reference to ball. It's a mashup of the two. So with that being said, it would make sense with Ball in a live text being a king who rules over legions, it would kind of go with the power, especially with him being like a weird spider, that he would either birth minions or summon minions to his aid, and then those minions would then do as he commanded. Therefore, he would be his own army, and he would be the king of that army. This too, I think, will prompt both the escape of Luffy and his friends, and then the death of Kuma, because I'm thinking Kuma's going to touch down on Egghead. He's going to disrupt things, but then he's going to paw pad Luffy and his allies away, only to be killed by Saturn. Then I think his devilfruit will manifest on the Mikan tree on the Sunny as a Mikan, which again is a cool reference to him being in a tangerine jumpsuit when he was first introduced in the manga during that color spread. Though Blackbeard, I think, even though he'll be touching down, will be too late to actually collect Kuma's devilfruit from his corpse. But however, with Blackbeard arriving, it would then put Saturn and the Marines on the back foot, because they just dealt with a Yonko. They aren't particularly prepared to deal with another, even when Saturn has a legion of weird spiders and pacifista at his disposal. If you recall, Blackbeard can just suck all those up. So they would kind of be at a standstill. That leaves Blackbeard room to negotiate things, meaning he can negotiate for a pirate island to be a legitimate nation, because he would have Saturn against the wall. He says he doesn't want to kill Saturn, but he wants to make a negotiation. And because Blackbeard is a pirate at heart, or by circumstance, what may happen as well is that he will take a Seraphim or two. I think potentially S-Hawk and S-Snake are the primary candidates. Don't know about S-Bear and S-Shark. They seem kind of unimportant in the grand scheme of things, seeing as how these are the two that we see attack Amazon Lily, which is the same location where he was in. So he'll probably be the most familiar with those two. I don't think he would have too much interest in S-Bear or S-Shark, though he could take all four, but I also think he would take York and leave them with the reactor. Or perhaps York is going to be working for both, and he lends York out as a contract worker, but he makes it very clear that she is a part of his crew. Perhaps that would happen, because then it would give York wiggle room to both be free as a, I guess, consort of a newly found nation, but also she wouldn't really be targeted by the world government if they ever decide to turn on her. That's a bit shaky, but yeah. As an additional bargaining chip, he would probably leave the world government with Punk Records, as he really would need Punk Records, because Punk Records most likely contains old information, and he has the genuine McCoy. He has a Vegapunk by his side if he indeed takes York. This kind of builds up the perfect recipe for that to happen. Saturn has great forces at his disposal, but they can just be wiped away by Blackbeard because the darkness fruit just nullifies devilfruits. So yeah, it'd be at a standstill. Blackbeard can be overtaken, but so can Saturn. But with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Give me your thoughts.